Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us for today's conversation. My name is Elizabeth Mbabazi, and I coordinate the Kuonyesha Art Fund, a program that is passionate about supporting art and artists in all their diversity in Africa. We are humbled to be serving artists in 11 countries in Africa at the moment. So we do not take that for granted. Thank you so much, everybody that is part of our artist community. And today's conversation, we are privileged to hear from and have Owekitibwa. Owekitibwa is a word from the Luganda tribe that means honorable. So with us today, we have Honorable Wamala Nuwa Nnyanzi, who is an art practitioner, a visual art practitioner. He calls himself a God-trained artist. I'm sure he will expound more on that as he shares with us today. Allow me to welcome Mr. Nnyanzi to speak to us today. You're very welcome, Mr. Nnyanzi.
Thank you, Elizabeth, for the kind words and the introduction. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Greetings to my guest, special guest, Dr. Maggie Kigozi. How are you doing? Thank you for joining us. Maggie Kigozi is a mother of an artist, a musician, the famous musician, Navio, because I call him Kigozi. So all fellow artists and those people outside of Uganda, I'm glad to be with you this afternoon. I'm Nuwa Wamala Nnyanzi, a visual arts practitioner and consultant. I'm God-taught because I didn't go to an art school to learn what I do. And I've been painting and creating art, selling it, and also buying it and selling it, and also keeping it, in other words, collecting it, for the last 46 years. And people keep on asking me, when are you going to retire? I'll retire as long as I cannot create art. The moment you see me in the coffin, then know I'll have retired. So we are here to talk about our responsibilities and in terms of to culture and also to ourselves and to community. What is it that, what is visual arts? Visual arts is the medium you use to express or to communicate or even to interpret either vision, a dream, or a thought. When we are growing up, most of us are artists at inception, because the first thing you do before you start writing letters and numbers, you start with drawing pictures of images you see. And I remember growing up, I would draw on the ground. Excuse me. I would draw on the ground using a piece of stick. And later on, luckily enough for me, we didn't have a cemented house. We had mud and water, whereby you could not draw on the wall. So I survived canes. But those who grew up in cemented and whitewashed walls suffered a great deal, because you'd practice your craft on the walls. So after you have drawn, there comes a time when you quit, either because of the pressures of school, school and also chores at home. But I don't know why when it comes to primary, secondary schools, fine art is dropped. Yet at kindergarten, every child is given an opportunity to express themselves using either pencils, chalk, pastel, or even their hands. So that is the background I would like to give you when it comes to my art practice. That's how I started. And I did my primary living. I started in Hoima for primary, and then secondary school I was in Mityana, Namkozi for 2 years, and then moved to Kampala, St. Francis Tutorial College. In Mityana, we had an art room. That's where we would do the fine art. Interestingly, Mityana Secondary School had an art room, art studio, and a lab studio, science laboratory. Today, I'm pleased to share with you that the art room is now named after me.
Awesome.
They call it Nuwa Wamala Nnyanzi Art Studio. Awesome. And also my studio gallery in Kampala is called Nnyanzi Art Studio.
Awesome.
So after creating the art, you have communicated. So what? You communicate what you see. You draw or you capture what you see, or you paint what you see, isn't it? You can either paint for fun or for killing boredom. You could paint because you've been commissioned, or you could paint with the intention of earning money. But whatever you do, let me tell you, whatever you do, it will be very good for you to express yourself in the best way you can, in a language you understand. When you look around visual arts in Uganda, it's abundant. But if somebody asked you, if you just landed, would that art show you that you're in Uganda? Does it bring out the rich cultural diversity Uganda has? So that's where we've been lacking. With most art practitioners in Uganda have tend to be influenced by forces from elsewhere, the internet, that kind of stuff. But my advice would be, you need to domesticate the knowledge you have acquired so that you may be inspired, but don't ape. So that you produce work which is relevant to both you, the surroundings, and probably the audience. But if you keep on copying what others have already done and to just twitching, then there will come a time when this particular generation will not have been recorded, because whatever you do is a record of what is going to be seen generations to come, and that will inform the researchers who will be looking for what may have been going on at that time. I keep on telling the newspaper, the people in the media, to be very, very careful when they are reporting. You need to report correctly, because newspapers is where we get history from. It's the first call when you're looking for history. The first port of call is the newspaper. What was happening in the 1990s, you got the newspapers. And if they had misreported and there was no correction, then you can see what will the impression you'd get. I've looked at works of art in Kampala, including public art pieces. Like, for example, the Chogam Monument by my good friend, Professor Kiyune, and their colleagues. That is supposed to represent when the Uganda is hosting of Chogam. But unfortunately, the images there, the costume, the what they are dressed in, does not reflect what was happening at that particular moment. And let me tell you, 100 years later, that painting, that sculpture will be there. And when they look at it, they say, oh, this is how these people used to walk naked. Was it because of there were no fabrics at that time? Was it? So what is it that, because it's important when you're commissioned to represent the true picture, unless if I've been told this particular piece you're going to work on must reflect a certain era. But if you're given the opportunity, the freedom to express yourself, please express what you see, what surrounds you, so that you'll help in capturing and recording the happenings, and also you'll be contributing. By the way, you also be contributing to global culture.
Absolutely.
Instead of becoming consumers of culture, I consciously create art which portrays Uganda's rich cultural heritage, because I'm contributing to the global culture. I don't want to be just a mere consumer.
So artists, to an extent, are contributors, or should be contributors, or should recognize that they are contributors to the global culture from wherever country they come from.
Certainly.
Thank you for that clarification. I'd like you to speak more to that. You were very instrumental, and still are, with the artworks that have been displayed in the Buganda Kingdom, and a lot of your artworks have been very intentional in representing, in creating that idea, and also in exporting the Buganda culture. Please speak more to that so that our audience can understand your mindset, or even how you arrived to that, because your works have been able to transcend the Ugandan geographical boundaries to even other countries in around the world, and they are still identified as an artwork from Uganda by Nuwa Nnyanzi. What are those unique aspects that you have been intentional about?
Thank you very much, Elizabeth, for that question. Well, the moment I'm an artist, like I said, by the grace of God. When I started creating art, to earn a living in 1978 in Nairobi, I deliberately decided to base my subject matter on stories told me by my grandmother, and the other stories I may have heard. So I'll tell stories in my art piece. In my first exhibition in 1980 in Nairobi at the Goethe Institute was Story Time, where I portrayed the cultural aspects of the Baganda, Banyoro, and the Kikuyus too, because that's where I was living in Nairobi. But then I decided to start creating images that was not in the public domain, yet not captured on canvas or paper, but yet in public you see these are the daily happenings, like the traditional dances. First of all, I had to learn how to dance the Kiganda dance. That I was in Nairobi when I had to learn how do you dance the Kiganda dance. You see, how do you portray a woman dancing with not necessarily spreading her legs? Yeah. So I had to learn how to dance the Kiganda dance and show how the dance, that the person is dancing but not spreading legs. And also, I learned how to capture motion. To capture motion and emotion. I use the shadow. The shadow represents you as a person. If you look at the image of your shadow, the shadow, it actually represents the features, your external features. But earlier on, while in the medical corps, I had trained in the public health, whereby they taught us life anatomy and physiology. So I'm able to capture emotion because of my knowledge of the anatomy and physiology. So I can make somebody laugh or smile without showing the teeth on the lips, but just doing the curve on the cheek. So after I had done that, I decided all my exhibitions will be portraying our Ugandan culture. Why? That was the time when everybody was calling Uganda a mass grave. That was during Idi Amin's time. Then I said, what will happen if Idi Amin is overthrown and is no longer there? Will it be, how much is it going to take us to correct that image? Because every politician is talking ill of Uganda because of Idi Amin. But to me, Ugandans are not necessarily bad people, except for the few people who spoil our nature. Say, I'm not going to engage in negative art. So I'm going to look at the positive aspect of Uganda and put it out there, because I know more Ugandans are nice people, we are good, we are cultured, but we are not as murderous as we are made to be seen by the politicians. There are few politicians who are vocal. So that's how I decided to start looking at the images that I'm going to portray. Even at our wedding, I put on a council. That was in Nairobi. Everybody was expecting me to come in the the morning suit, or the afternoon, the evening suit. But that one I put it on for them in the evening. But I had to put on a counselor. I'm a Ugandan from Uganda. So I believe in Uganda, and I believe in domestication, or domesticating the knowledge. When I travel, I see what I see. I come back, I domesticate the knowledge. I don't cut and paste. I look at what they're doing there. I say, what is it that makes them proud? So, their culture. What is their culture? Oh, it's the food. Okay, fantastic. Then I come back, I'll look at the food. Yes. When I come back, if it's the attire. Say, okay, then if they are proud to put on theirs, I will be proud to put on yours. Then when it came to naming of children, I consciously decided to name my children non-English names. Because Christianity is not English. Therefore, I decided if there is something, our first son is Chisachi Amuendo, Precious Grace. And then the daughter is Malaika. But before that, at school, Chamwendo would be asked, what is your Christian name? Then he would come back and ask me, Tata, what is my Christian name? Your name is Kisachi Amwendo. Then my daughter would also came back. She insisted. She came back 3 times and Tata, now this time I want to, because I was asking for my Christian name. Then I had to write to the principal and headmaster. That was Honorable Kasole and Mr. Mkib, may his soul rest in peace. To explain to them that my children are Baganda, and these are their names. But if you want to understand them in English, this is what they are in English. Chisachiamwendo is Precious Grace. Malaika is Angel or Gabriela, or Angela, if you want. But since they are not Zungu, they're not white. They're not English. They are settled with that, and the case rested. But before that, when they're being baptized, I'm all giving you all this to give you the foundation of my art. Why? It's my belief and commitment, and I wouldn't mind getting disciples too. So when they're being baptized, Bishop, I was then Reverend, the provost of Njenga, provost of All Saints, Nairobi. He stood up, they were preparing us, and then they're telling us what we're going to go through. Said, now, I know you're going to ask me about names. I don't mind African names. He was definitely referring to me because he knew how to challenge him. Said, no, I don't mind African names. But I mind the Michael Jackson. I laughed. I said, those Michael Jackson, yet they are in the Bible. Those names are in the Bible, but his problem was with the person.
Interesting.
So that's how I look at my art to create,
To
I like
center it.
to center it on the images that I'm familiar with. Or even when I travel, when I was in South Africa, we had for the first time, after the artist, the administrator seeing my work
Yes.
at the University of Transcribe,
Yes.
said, "Yeah, I would like you to create a mural for the wall in the administration wall, the administration block." I said, "Yeah, I will do that." So I was with the Kakaire, the artist. So I said, "Come, let's do this." So we drove around. I made my sketches, and we started creating this piece, which shows the Xhosa culture. Guess what?
Wow.
The people who are working there looked at us and said, they started talking to us in Xhosa.
In the Xhosa language.
Said, but we don't understand the language. Who is your? They asked us, who is your boss?
Oh.
They didn't believe that we were the master, we are the creators of the originators of the piece we are creating.
Okay.
They said, but we are not even South Africans. So where are you from? I said, Uganda. How come you're drawing our people? I said, but we have seen them. How long have you been here? I said, 2 weeks.
So being able to translate what you see, even though you're in a different geographical space as an artist, seems to be a skill and also a responsibility that you have to be able to communicate and document. One of the, as we speak about culture preservation and responsibility, of course, when you put that alongside the professionalism of the skill, you realize that it is both a vocation and a life skill. So in there, artists talk about all the challenges of funding. There's inadequate funding. If you do go the route of cultural preservation, because you are looking at the bigger picture, people might not buy your work will not sell. How did you, as an artist, was that a fear that you ever had? And if it was, how did you go about it? If it wasn't, what gave you the confidence that your work would still be preserving culture and still earning you a living?
Thank you very much for that question. You see, I pray before I create anything. I pray when I'm doing it, and I pray after, and I thank God after I'm doing it. So with my God's grace, whatever I created was appreciated. But this is what I did. I started saying to the people who are right next to me, my stepsister,
clients
were my client. My late stepsister, Florence Ouma, was working with the Habitat. She was the first person to buy my art when I was in Nairobi, and she hung it up. And her friends came and saw it, and also commissioned. But this is what I used to do. I would allow them to pay in installments. In Kenya, we call it hire purchase.
Okay.
So they will pay I would tell them every month we'll be paying you this much. I said, no problem.
Yes.
2, I was able to explain what I had done and why I had done it.
Okay.
See, these people have just really woken up to the situation of the fact that you have art is a story. You must tell a story.
Telling a story.
My first exhibition in 1980, I would have a paragraph on each and every piece explaining
the artwork.
The art piece. Okay. And then later on, I decided to reduce the text to a simple title, which would explain. And that's what people would call my titles. They say my art is as poetic. My titles are as poetic as my art piece.
As the art piece.
Yes.
So being able to explain the work made it easy for you to sell it, but also being able to identify audiences that connected to your work also made it practical and easy to sell the work.
No, praying and
believing.
Praying
and believing before you create the work and even after you create the work. Awesome.
Let me add on this. You see, artists.
Yes.
You sit in your studio. You created a work of art, and somebody comes and pays you for it.
Yes.
Isn't that a miracle?
Yes.
This is a miracle. Now, when you sell, please spend like you never said again. Don't spend like people who sell food. If you spend like people who sell food, because every other day, somebody will be hungry.
Oh, yeah.
But with the art, you buy one and that's it. So that's why you need you must be frugal with your money.
So that's be frugal with your money.
And after you have sold, buy materials.
Okay.
Tithe and save 10%.
And save 10%.
Or buy another one's work of art and for resale.
Interesting. Another aspect that comes in as we think about and speak about cultural preservation is the reality that today the geographical lines as we know them have fallen. So we are in what they're calling a local community or society, a merge between global and local. What advice do you give to artists who are in that space of trying to maintain their traditional roots of artworks and experience, but also wanting to broaden their geographical reach to be able to tap into international markets, international audiences, yet remain traditional? That balance between traditional and adapting to changing times. What advice would you give to artists?
I personally do not aspire to reach the global with a language I don't understand. I take my language.
You take your language
I
there.
take my language
So you
there.
carry your Luganda work and your Uganda theme to the global stage.
And then they get curious.
Yes.
Oh, what is it that you are saying?
Yes.
Can you explain to us? Then I explain in their language.
Their language.
See, if you don't do that,
Yes.
you risk
Yes.
to compete with people who are masters of their own game. You don't want to do that.
That's very powerful. That is, I think, very, very powerful. I want you to speak more to that, because for an artist who has been practicing for that long, we've seen your batiks and your works in as far as North America, and yet they still maintain their authenticity as artworks about Buganda by a Muganda. And you're not worried about competing with an American artist out there.
Because I can't. They are experts in their own, and almost an expert in mine. So, but today, the people who are coming up today are lucky because the African art is appreciated now and accepted.
Yes.
They don't have to push.
Yes.
Now you just sail through.
You just sail through.
Just sail through as long as you're doing quality work.
Quality work.
Original.
Very, very important.
Quality work. Quality, original. What do I mean by quality original work? You should, before you create, think about what you're going to create and why you're creating it. Once you have created it and you have put it out there, should be the first audience. Put it out there and look at it. Would you pay for anything for it? Okay. If you're not going to, if you know, it's not something, if you've done something you're not proud of, please don't expect anybody else to do that. If you get somebody to do that, to buy your work which you don't like, it can happen. But guess what? That would be a one-off. You can't depend on that. But if you're going to make art your profession, your mainstay in terms of income, then make sure you create what you believe in, you are satisfied with. If don't be discouraged by the few people who come and meet and disparage your work, especially your neighbor, your friends.
Your friends, yes.
Your friends don't have to be your buyer. They should be your critics.
Okay, so they can be your critic as well.
And take their criticism in good faith.
In good faith.
But rest assured, there will be somebody, if you're genuinely creating art, somebody will be there to respect you. And guess what? Once I've created art today, for example, if you create a piece of art showing the Karoli. Karoli is the marble stock. It's all over Kampala. You see it everywhere.
Yes.
But if you create a work of art, I've done it before.
Yes.
And became very popular. I called it. There's a time when they're killing them, and then I decided to capture that image and I put a tag, "City Cleaner." Leave them alone because they will not be here if you are clean. The marble stock will not appear where the hygienic
city is
clean.
Yes.
It will only come clean, so they're called city clean. Or the crested crane. We have not explored the crested crane to the extent so that it becomes acceptable globally, because we think the eagle is a beautiful word, but that is an American and German symbol. You have a crested crane that has very good stories, first of all. So if we engage in that in different styles, we'll get you'll be contributing to the documentation. But at the same time, you earn a living, and probably even your children may earn from it. So you have created something original which has not been there. Of course, in the public domain, there'll be what you call royalties to be paid. Then there is decline. I've seen paintings of lions. And then I look at people who like painting wildlife. I said, how come they don't paint the Ishasha lions? The tree climbing lions.
So we basically have a wide diversity of inspiration.
Yes, the lion in the savannah, you cannot compete with the Kenyan and the South African.
Very different. Very, very different.
So get yours up in the tree. The person who bought the one in the savannah, very
Yes.
well painted by
Yes.
David Shepard, may his soul rest in peace,
Yes.
will buy yours because now this is
It's
this is
different.
yet you have documented Uganda's rich culture.
Yeah, so being able to even just find those unique aspects of what make Uganda's heritage different is also a responsibility that artists need to be aware of. As we get into that, you're one of the few artists, if not, yeah, one of the few, I don't know how many people know this, that you have served both as a soldier and also now an artist. As we get into a space where the arts can be or have the potential to be politicized because of their ability to be vocal, non-ashamedly, to be critical without any remorse. As an artist, how do you navigate the space of, well, not necessarily staying safe, but producing your artworks, but still documenting work as you see it and not interfere with the politics, or if you do, you're still practicing as an artist and it does not affect you?
I think, okay, as a soldier, you are trained to live. You must survive.
To survive, okay.
No heroes are dead.
Oh, yes.
That must be alive.
Oh, yes.
Once you value life,
Yes.
you know what not to do.
Okay.
Unless if you are reckless.
Okay.
Then, as an artist, I can imagine.
Mm.
Because I can imagine and turn my imagination into reality.
Yes.
So I see it before it happens.
Okay.
Then when it comes to politics, I talk politics,
Yes.
but I don't practice it.
Okay.
And if I'm going to criticize, I'll criticize, but at the same time, most people know my position.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not a hypocrite.
Oh, yeah.
They know where I stand. They know what I oppose. I'll tell the president what I think, even if he doesn't like it, but I'll deliver it nicely. There's a time when at General Kasiyagwanga's farm in Kyagwe, and we were walking and we met this lady in the garden, and we stopped, and the lady knelt to greet the president.
Yes.
And he said, "Hey, don't kneel. Me, I don't believe in those things." I turned to the president. I said, "Your Excellency,
Yes.
if that matters to us,
Yes.
can I stop a soldier from saluting you?"
Yes.
I said, "No, of course not."
Yes.
Then let her kneel. This is a way of method of salute.
Yes.
Your Excellency, sir. And he accepted. So I didn't see. If I had let it pass, then I would have sent a very bad precedent. But I had to correct the situation. So she's not kneeling because she's worshiping you. No,
it's
she's
her culture.
saluting you.
Yes. Yes.
It's a culture.
So as an artist, being able to recognize the middle ground
And which language to use.
and which language to use. And I think as an artist, your language is your medium of practice. Yes, so we have different practitioners on the conversation as we navigate culture preservation and the responsibility of the artist therein. Where do you fall and how can you carry this on? Because your role is not just to earn money, but also you are documenting your country's history and present, but also creating a legacy for the artworks that you practice. As we get into the times that we're in, it's hard to speak about the arts and preservation and not look at technology. We are in an era where everything's on our smartphones. We are speaking to artists in as far as South Africa through our devices. What would you, from your experience, there's the caution side, but also there's the advantages of technology in preserving our culture. How would you speak to that as an artist, and how has that space either benefited you, or what risks do you see as we preserve culture using the arts and technology?
Thank you very much, Elizabeth. You're very good questions, which I appreciate. Now, technology. Let me tell you, if you're an artist, embrace technology. You may be cautious, but for heaven's sake, do not shun technology. And if you have a smartphone, I would like to ask you, how much money does it make for you? If you're invested in a very expensive smartphone for fun, this is the time now to start making use of it. Let it earn money for you. You should not be a slave to technology. You should be a master of technology. You use that phone to, first of all, record all the sketches, do all the steps as you sketch here. You can even film yourself a video clip using the same phone. The same phone. do a lot of recording and documentation, and also use the internet to do research. See, you may be there, you create an art piece. After you have taken the picture of your art piece you have created, you think you have created, take a picture of it and match it on the Google and see if there are other similar pieces. You'll be surprised to see that there are others there. So
in the world.
In the world.
Yes.
So that is what I'm going to caution artists. Please, if you want to survive the next 10, 20, in the coming generations, you must create original works of art. Because if you don't, the AI is going to reject it. It will not be accepted when you submit it for jurisdiction or a submission for a project, because AI will detect that this is not an original piece of work.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
Or when you've created it, put it out in the domain and copyright it. Why am I saying that? Because if you don't put it out in the domain and copyright it, the other person is going to claim it.
Oh, yes.
So there must be evidence that it's actually used.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
And when you are signing, I'll give you another technique. When you are sending your art piece for a submission, get a transparent paper and sign on it and place it on top of the art piece and take a picture.
Like create a watermark.
It will be a watermark which can never be removed.
Which can never be removed.
And if it's removed, there will be evidence that it was removed.
Well, there's never a more important time than now to be authentic and also to be as original and as unique as possible, because the competition is getting tougher, and also there's a lot of work on the market. We would like to open up this conversation to the audience for any questions, comments, and remarks to Mr. Nnyanzi. He would be happy to respond to that. As he speaks to the last point on our end in regards to the generational gaps and engaging community in the works that you produce as artists. I would like to invite Mr. Nnyanzi to share how he has engaged community and navigated the generational gaps. He is a practitioner who is over 70, but his works are appreciated by the older artists, middle to young age generations. He facilitates classes for children. He has even acted in a TV series that is loved by so many people. So as an art practitioner, share tips or any nuggets to artists that you would encourage them on how to navigate the generational gaps as they create their artworks and to engage more community.
Thank you very much once again, Elizabeth. I have a philosophy: love what you do and do what you love, and love the people who appreciate your art. So see, once you have created the art and this person, I look at art as my child. So I have even a poem which I composed in 1997. But you said it's loved by children, by older people, and those are yet to be born.
And those that are yet to be born. Wow.
Yes, but it's because I love people.
Yes.
And when I find somebody who does not appreciate art, I endeavor to encourage to induct them.
Okay.
I'd like to share with you my experience in Nairobi when I met Professor Wangari
Maathai?
No, not Wangari. It's, Wanjiku.
Professor
Wanjiku of literature, with her husband. Somebody had commissioned me to create an art piece, and I was taken. She was an American staying with them, and Professor. She was at that time a senior lecturer. She laughed. I said, "How can somebody spend money on this kind of stuff?" I said, Monica, I'm going to create an art piece which you will buy. Yes. She laughed and said, Kikuyu, I spend money on this. I said, no, forget it. She's a literature professor, I remember. Oh, yes. So I went. That was in the 80s, late 80s. So I went. I created a woman pounding but dancing and smiling. Yes. I brought it back. Yes. She looked at it and asked her, "What do you see then?" I said, "I see somebody smiling." Yes. Is she dancing or smiling? I said, "Yes, it is." Yeah. And she said, "I think I'm going to buy it." Awesome. She paid me the equivalent of Kenya 1,500. That is 1,500. That is worth. It was worth my month's rent. Oh, at that time. Yes. Wow. So then, when it comes to, but basically loving and being, see, even if you have talent and you lack passion. You have no passion. Yes. Forget it. It will be there and you die with it. Very true. And appreciating people who appreciate you. Very, very true. When I get young people. There are people who nowadays, I thought as a visual artist, I was popular until I started acting these movies.
Oh, yes.
I basically can't do anything.
You
stupid
became a
now.
celebrity.
I no longer have my privacy now. So people would find you and say, yeah, Mr. Rubogo, oh,
Yeah,
Moses,
yeah.
Tata Marcus. Now, the children. So what I do, with the moment they mentioned, I said, do you have a phone? They said, let's take a
A
selfie.
selfie.
So what does that mean? When you find your fan, you have found your boss.
Oh,
Be at your best.
very interesting. When you find your fan as an artist, you have found your boss. So be at your best. And with that, I would like to open the floor to the audience. We have some questions and remarks in the chat. And Clayton says, for most of our cultures and traditions in Uganda, the tribes define our identities. However, as you have expressed, art and creativity is heavily driven by self-expression. My question is, how can we have more people leaning into their individual expression within the confines of the tribal limitations?
By expressing what you feel, what you see, and how you understand it. It will be interpreted or misinterpreted. By the way, you are not a politician, you're not looking for votes. So it's
Okay, you've just run a spanner in the works. You're not a politician looking for votes.
Yes.
So your work is liable to be misinterpreted
and
or even
interpreted.
interpreted properly. So I think as an artist, being confident,
Yeah.
being confident of that and leaning into your tribal side without the fear of wanting to to express another person's tribe, because you risk also not misrepresenting, because you did share that a lot of your work is largely hinged on the Buganda tribe, because that is where you come from. Thank you. Clayton, I hope that answers your question. Portia says, well, I think she was saying something else, and she also says she's enjoying the session. She's loving Mr. Nnyanzi's session. He's definitely a great storyteller. Portia is from South Africa. Yes, Portia.
Hey, Konjan.
Please unmute and speak.
Ngiyaphila bunjani?
Yeah, Peter.
Oh, guys, I feel like this is one session that I've been needing for, especially this whole week. Thank you, Mr. Nnyanzi, for such an informative session, and thank you also, Elizabeth, for asking the right questions. Oh my God!
Thank you.
I'm really enjoying. I think I found my favorite quote. As an artist, once you found your fan, you found your boss.
Oh yes.
Thank you.
And then, Mr. Nnyanzi, you spoke of one other thing, which is using our devices. I mean, we have expensive devices, and most of us do not utilize it the right way. And then you spoke of documenting and IPing the work that we do. So this is a question of which I yet still haven't found the answer to. A couple of weeks ago, we were having a conversation with my colleagues. So I am a filmmaker and a dance choreographer as well. But currently my focus has been on African storytelling, mostly on pre-colonial African stories, right? But now my thing is, when it comes to IPing and copywriting a film or a concept, there seems to be, I'm not sure if it's a miscommunication or not enough information when it comes to copywriting a film, because they said you cannot copyright an idea because ideas are quite similar. So in your experience, I know you're probably far from the film space, but what has been your experience when it comes to copywriting for film, or copywriting for a film idea where it's inclusive of the logline, the synopsis, and everything? How do we protect our work as filmmakers? Thank you.
I'm new in film. Thank you very much for that question, Portia. I'm new in film, but if they're talking about, I think they're looking at a product as opposed to an idea. Do you know how I always go around such restrictions? There's a time when I was told that you cannot display religious images. and I created a man spreading hands in a form of cross, and I put it on. It was allowed to be part of the exhibition. There was no cross, but everybody who looked at it knew I meant a man on the cross, but there was no cross. So what am I saying? I think if you have an idea, write it down. Write the idea and explain it, and even write the codes. The what do you call them? Or draw storyboard.
Oh,
yes.
But yeah, your question is very technical. I would suggest you consult a professional lawyer on that. And just as Mr. Nnyanzi has said, you can copyright the product, not the idea, because the ideas keep evolving, and some of those can be very what's the word? They're neither here nor there. But I would encourage you to engage a professional lawyer on that. I'm sure many countries have different jurisdictions on copyright, but there are some that are similar. So you might get some good advice there.
Okay, but by saying a product, does this mean a completed film?
Oh,
you can copyright
lyric,
the film, not the
storyboard,
idea.
The storyboard. You get an artist to draw for you the storyboard, your ideas, how you want it to be, and you go ahead and copyright that.
I see. Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Katesi, your remark is very lengthy, and I would like to invite you to speak to it. I'm sure you'll be able to express it a bit better. Unless you're in a place where you can't speak, then I will read it out. Katesi, are you able to speak? Okay, maybe not. So I'll read out. Katesi, you say, thank you, Owekitibwa Nuwa, for this incredible yet mind-opening talk. I would like to hear more from you in regard to what your thoughts are when it comes to imported cultures. Imported cultures are present in our indigenous cultures and traditions, mainly as a result of colonization. However, it is difficult to identify them, more so if you are not critical and perhaps knowledge-seeking. In reference to one of your opening remarks, you clearly shared that newspapers have an important role in documenting historical conceptions in our country. In the same manner, artists too have a similar role. How do we obtain a balance when it comes to preserving and archiving our cultures without losing their originality and authenticity, especially at such a time where there are promising efforts in place from different stakeholders globally to write and visualize our African history and cultures in a new positive light from an African perspective?
Now you have your job cut out for you. This is what you do. I talked about this was from
it was from Katesi. Yes.
Katesi. Thank you very much for the question and the appreciation. Now, when I travel and I see what other people do, I said when I acquire knowledge, I come back and domesticate it. You see, you cannot keep away other cultures, but what you can do is domesticate them or use them to amplify your own culture. You see, there are certain aspects which are positive. That's not a problem. But try as much as you can, like go to your grandmother or grand uncle, whatever is an old person, get a story, interpret that story in your own. So that will be part of your contribution in terms of recording. Even if you use tools which are not indigenous, but at least you have done something in terms of recording. And you'll be recognized and you'll be appreciated for that.
Yes.
But spending a lot of time running away from external influences may frustrate you to the extent that you may even go bananas. What you need to do is to accept that there are forces that will come in, but how do you navigate them and how do you turn them to your advantage? I'll give an example. We have the Kikoi in Uganda, in Uganda today. Everybody believes it's a Ugandan fabric, including the Indians.
Oh, yes.
There's a time when an Indian came to my shop with his friend who had come from India.
Yes.
And said they were looking for Ugandan fabric.
Yes.
I said, which one are you talking about?
Yes.
He said, this one with the Ugandan colors.
Yes.
Then I realized, he means Kikoi.
Like
I said, then I asked him, do you know that this is actually from India?
Yes.
So what happened? The Ugandans domesticated it.
Oh, yes.
And appropriated. Now today, even the Indians at the Olympic Games, Commonwealth Games, that's what the Ugandans put on.
Yes.
And even the Indians appreciate that it's our Ugandan.
It's actually known as a Ugandan piece.
Yes. So, but what you need to do is be true to yourself to start with. Once you have done that, whatever you do whatever you create will be evidence to what you think and what you believe in. You could be wrong in one aspect, but you let somebody else also do their part. When they put them together, then you have a full picture. You can't do everything.
Oh, yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for that. We have another question from Lillian. Lillian says, I'm an artist. My art, I find myself talking about more of hope and myself being a girl with disability and not particularly my culture. How would you suggest ways I can merge the two? I work with nails and strings, paintings as mixed medium on wood. I'm enjoying this session so much too. Thank you, Lillian. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Lillian.
She's from Tanzania.
Hey, VP, Shindaji. So now, this, you see, is what you see around you. After expressing yourself, living with disabilities, now look at the advantage you have over the so-called abled people. What you produce, they cannot. Bring out the culture.
Yes.
Whatever culture you think you want to address, for example, maybe there could be certain aspects of culture which you want to recorded or portrayed, or you want to be commented on.
Oh, yes.
Create the piece using that as subject matter. I hope I've answered you well. If not, please follow. Can we ask a follow-up question?
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Nnyanzi. Do we have another question in the audience? Anybody else would like to ask a question?
Yeah, thank you so much. I hope everyone hears me.
Yes, Gooding, I hear you. Yes, Gooding, I can
thank
hear you.
So much. This is a very interesting conversation that I'm getting today. I deal in bidding. I do a lot of stuff. I have many talents that God has given me. And what Dr. Nnyanzi just said is like blending the cultural or the African or cultural style. And if you go the modern one, like the global style, like blending it into your cultural, it's really something very important. One thing that I've appreciated is like we like for us Karamojongs, we have different kind of cultural scars, cultural things that we really sell. But we also do the Maasai to blend after. So like for us, sometimes we make uniforms for schools, but then you find that when you make uniform for school, you bring this material of Karamojong and you make maybe for a collar or for the or for the pockets. You find that people really appreciate. Like for example, in my shop, we have a lot of cultural things that Kuonyesha supported us with. But then what I do is to blend, and I thought maybe I was making a mistake, but this conversation really has given me more light, has given me more light in and be blending my things. And you find whenever I get customers, when they come here, they really appreciate it. They say, wow, this is nice. How did you do this? And you find things are going and people appreciate that. And I thought I was making a mistake, but when I get customers I really improve on that. It is an idea. It's a good idea that Nnyanzi is telling us. It's a good idea, but really I needed to expound more, like maybe in how to explore this in the outside world. Like he said that you can use your device in making money, yes, but then we also need to explore, like if there are other gatherings, like maybe other gatherings that we can expose ourselves into, so that we are able to sell our items outside, because right now we are confined within Karamoja. But once in a while we get tourists who come in and buy our things, but we really need to be exposed, and more especially like when you have more talents like I do. I really have talents, but which I need to explore more, and I see how I can. Like for example, I want to even improvise maybe a training place here in my place where I can buy or I can sell of my ideas, so that other people also learn to get this through making a living through this kind of art thing. I really appreciate this. Really, I needed to expound more on how I can get this out of me, and it is more it's more productive, and it also supports any other person outside there. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Gooding. Thank you for sharing, and it's good to hear your takeaways for the day. Allow me to invite Honorable Dr. Maggie to speak. Please unmute. Your hand is up.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. And for
You're
this
welcome.
very interesting program, Honorable Owekitibwa. I am not honorable, maybe just to clarify, and maybe Professor or Doctor, but never honorable. And I want to thank Owekitibwa for that presentation, and also for being such a great artist.
Yes.
Over the
Thank you.
years, we have watched your art, and we have seen the kinds of things, and we meet them in hotels and various places. So we are extremely proud of you.
Thank you.
Mine was to share a little bit of my journey in this sector when I was head of the Uganda Investment Authority.
Yes.
We identified it as a priority sector, the creative industry as a whole, and also looked at what it is that we need to do to make you guys succeed, to make you be able to make money. And we looked at, copyright is one of those things. So the law was passed. We put in place Uganda Communications Commission. We ensured the telecoms were working because digitalization is critical. So all the work that needed to be done to get UTL, MTN, and all those others give you the connectivity that you needed. And then, the music industry is booming now. They fill up stadiums. Can you believe it? Young boys just fill up stadiums. It's incredible. The film industry, and congratulations again for you moving into the film industry as well. OHT, well, how could you do that? We are proud. We are
Please
proud
join
of you.
us.
Anyway, I just wanted to share that, yes, we did our work as government in the background to make it possible for you to succeed. So in fact, if there's more work that needs to be done, you need to inform like Uganda Communications Commission or the Ministry of IT or even Uganda Investment Authority, so that more areas that are still making your lives difficult can also continue to be addressed. So thank you very much, and I am glad to have had the opportunity to listen to you, Owekitibwa Nuwa Nnyanzi.
Thank you very much, Professor Maggie Shigoze. By the way, the work you started is still going on. There is a presidential roundtable, investors roundtable on the creatives, and we are having a meeting with the MDAs on the 28th of October. Of this month, sorry. 20th of this month. We're having a meeting and see how the strategies of how to move forward and what else is supposed to be included in the policy. So yeah, the job you started is still going on. Your colleagues have carried it forward. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Excellent.
Another question in the chat from Otia, you say, how do we make sure that the work we create isn't already on AI, in bracket chat GP? Is it checking for choice of words, phrases, especially when doing research projects first before executing the creative idea?
Yes, please. Whatever we see, you write what you have written in the text, and then you ask, you put the question there, has this been published before?
Yes.
Or you take an image of the sketch you have done or the painting you have done and take it to Google. There's a provision there where you can click and then match. Other images will come up which may be considered to be similar to yours.
Thank you, Potel.
Can you imagine this is a 72-year-old man?
Well, you've had the benefit of time to know some of these things.
I tell people I may not be any more youthful, but I'm still useful.
Very, very funny, Mr. Nnyanzi. You're always useful to us here. Teresa, thank you for sharing. I would encourage those who are in the group to go to the chat and look at Teresa's website. And she is sharing on Undameta. They create and sell African-inspired patterns and textiles. And she says it would be lovely to see your cultural semiotics translated in print. So if you could follow her link, you'll be able to see what they create. Amazing work from Kenya. Thank you so much, Teresa.
Gooding, I lived in Karamoja in 1973. I was in Moroto Barracks, that's 2nd Battalion. And later on, I went back there, and I'm a supporter and promoter of the Karimojong attire, especially the one which you have since Ugandized from Masai. Now we use the Uganda colors for the necklace, the head gear, and plus the armband, but in the Ugandan colors.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Owekitibwa. Any other comments and remarks from the audience? Anybody in the group? Clayton says checking images on the internet and AI trains the algorithm to generate those images as originals. As a technologist, I would advise against that. Very good advice, Clayton.
Appreciated.
Thank you. We've taken note of that. And you're so right, because when you look at your Google search, do you sometimes think that someone is spying on you? Because you type something as you're searching a random thing, and after a while, you start getting notifications on the same in your other social media sites. And then you're wondering, how did they know I was looking for this? So you're right about the algorithms picking up patterns and creating the same. Artisan Heaven, you're typing something. I don't know if you'd prefer to speak to it. Okay, Edna, your hand is up. Please unmute.
Also, maybe about AI and searching for the image and seeing if there are other versions of your work. The other trick that you can do is when you Google, it will give you an option to accept or deny all cookies. So when you accept cookies, there's going to be a tracker number of either your phone or your device tracking your activity. So try as much as possible to deny all cookies, and also always go to your settings section of whatever device that you're using and try to always clear the cache. Those are the remnants of any Google page or any site that you have visited. That will keep your device risk-free from any viruses, but also it will reduce the tracking and the training of the algorithm. And also it will give you a safe kind of cover, but it's not safe entirely, but it will suffice for the time until you think of better innovative ways to cross-check your productions or anything of the sort.
Awesome. Thank you, Edna. That is super smart. Artisan Heaven, please unmute and speak. Artisan Heaven, you're still muted.
As Artisan, I think she's typing.
Okay.
But how else? See, let me tell you, unless your work is not going to be on the internet, as long as the work goes on the internet, there's very little you can do about preventing it from being copied. But what happens is that the originator, if you are to go to court, you have evidence of that, being the originator, as opposed to having, because you have had your sketches with you.
And there is
also a saying we say, once you have undressed, you cannot fear cold water.
Very funny. There was a comment about culture evolving and just being able to adapt to the times. I can't seem to find it now, but that was one of the remarks earlier on. Artisan Heaven, please unmute.
Thank you so much.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you so much, Madam Elizabeth. Personally, I'm very grateful for this wonderful conversation. It has really handled several aspects, but what really caught my attention was the aspect of the digital embracing. Personally, I deal in several kinds of crafts, and one very aspect that I picked from Owekitibwa's presentation. Thank you so much for the wonderful presentation. The aspect of, I realized that when it comes to art and craft, the aspect of having a copyright, even when it's a bit hard to actually attain, that you, as an artist, it is very important that you take every single detail of your progress, of every single step that you make as you opt to put it out there for the public to get to see your work and to also appreciate it. So personally, I've embraced it that even when the copyright is a little bit hard to actually obtain for a creative, a personnel, that it is very important for you to have every single step along the way for every single piece that you make or you ought to make. Yes, that is
absolutely
that contributes on that.
I agree with you entirely.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Artisan Heaven.
Okay, please.
Any other remarks from the audience? I see a hand. Oh, okay. Artisan, your hand is still up. I think that's an old hand. Any other remarks from the audience? So Clayton, you say one safe technology to use for digitizing art is NFTs on the blockchain. I will hold that because it's still a space that I've had. I don't know how very familiar you are with NFTs, but I'm in another space where artists have had not so good experiences with NFTs. So I would hold that thought for some time, but it's still a space that people are exploring, I guess. Any other remarks from the anybody else in the chat who'd like to share something as we bring this conversation to a close? Allow me to invite Mr. Nnyanzi to share his closing remarks in regard to culture preservation and the responsibility of artists and creatives.
Thank you very much, Elizabeth, and thank you very much all the participants and those who have been listening in, and thank you for the comments and the compliments. I appreciate it a great deal. We have Moses Serugon, Elizabeth.
Okay, so Moses will take your comment or question before Mr. Nnyanzi shares his closing remarks.
Sure.
Hello, I hope I can be heard.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, apologies, I wasn't around for his presentation, but in regards to preserving our cultural heritage is essential, but it's also a responsibility we must carry into the future. I want to speak to what I'm doing with the YouTube channel Run, Frames and Waves, where we've been documenting visual arts practice for the past 5 years. Actually, we just realized that we started this during the pandemic, but now we've gotten to a point where we are weary from the fact that our work is underappreciated, and then the funding also is hard to come by. So I want to know from Mr. Nnyanzi, is there a magic bullet to keeping this thing going? You know, yes, you're passionate about it, but the whole thing about surviving is weighing you down in regards to documenting. Like for us, the purpose was to document visual arts practice for posterity, such that 100 years to come, you're able to go back to this YouTube channel and reference what, say, visual arts practice during the pandemic was like. But we've gotten to a point where we are at our wits' end, and it's not making sense anymore.
Thank you very much, Moses. I think keep on banging the doors, knocking on the doors. The MasterCard project, that sounds like a project which is funded. It's a fundable project. It's the people you're talking to probably who are not appreciating, or the way you are presenting it probably. But it looks like a fundable project to me. And to me, I always use my own resources. Most of the things I've done. Because like I said, when I sell, I spend, I will never sell again. So, but if you believe in something, you keep on until such a time when somebody will come in and probably put in money. See, the reason we don't have resources in Uganda is because government has not encouraged the private sector to invest in it, because they have not shown the private sector their benefits in funding the arts. And also people, when you go elsewhere, there is what they call an endowment fund. And people millionaires bequeath their money to research organizations or art projects. So what is happening? What needs to be done here to have cultured people in charge of the country? Then they will encourage investors in that space. Once that happens, there will be a multiplier effect. But as long as that has not happened yet, we have to use the resources, and that's available.
Moses, please share your YouTube handle in the chat for the other artists who are on to see the work that you have been doing over the last 5 years. I know that you are one of the few artists who have some amazing documentary projects that have captured and that are preserving intentionally, actually, not out of artists are creating for different reasons, but you are creating with the intention to preserve. So please share that, and let us have a side conversation after this, and we can, let's talk about this further, because I know we started this with you. So let us talk about this after this. And allow me to invite Owekitibwa to share his closing remarks.
Thank you very much, listeners, like I said, and of course, participants. Thank you for the questions and comments. Elizabeth, thank you for hosting me. The visual arts are very, very, very important component of society, because it's a language that is universal. It's understood by almost everybody. those who can see, but then we have sculpture for those people who cannot see. So the responsibility on documenting for posterity is on us. See, when you have that talent, don't go with it without using it, putting it to the best use possible. Like, for example, if you are able to draw or paint or sculpt or carve or weave, please go ahead and do that. But do it with a conscious mind that you're telling a story of what is happening, or what may have happened before, or what you anticipate may happen in the future. Because there are certain things when they happen, if the people who are present at that time do not record what has happened visually, literally, or audially, then there is a risk of distortion in years to come, and claims will be made. So for you to contribute towards the correction or preservation of prevention of misinformation and distortion, is best for you to do it now when you're able and willing. Then also, of course, I would like to appeal to the people, the private sector, because I appeal to government time and time again, the private sector to start looking at art as a source, another way of investment. You buy art today, just like land, believe me or not, it will gain value. Art does not lose value.
Oh, yes.
Art gains value over a period of time, and that art does not rot. So it's a safe way. Instead of investing in other disposable stuff you buy for leisure or entertainment or self-gratification, also include art among the things you want to spend on. Once that one has been done, then we have more artists coming up, and we also have more young artists aspiring to become artists. And see, the more we have, the better the space is going to be, and there'll be a lot of improvement and beauty. Of course, art adds beauty to the space, not only space, but also to the. It's also therapeutic. The people who have benefited from art, psychosocial therapy, And then so there is also art for identity purposes.
Yes.
You see, look at the military uniform.
Oh, yes.
Today we have the Army and Air Force, Navy, prisons and police. They all have camouflage, but the different colors. That's the work of an artist.
Oh, yes.
To differentiate the two,
Oh, yes.
the different disciplines. And also you have art for guidance. For example, you feel like going to the bathroom. Can you imagine if there's no that sign of a man or a woman?
Oh, yes.
Where would you end up? You may end up in the boss's office and you were ready to go.
Oh, yes.
So art needs to be funded,
Absolutely.
supported, and we, the artists, need to take our responsibility of archiving and branding. We are brand ambassadors.
Absolutely.
Actually, no, we are brand masters.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Owekitibwa, for sharing your insights, experience, and nuggets on culture preservation and the responsibility of the artist. That was our topic today. Thank you so much to everybody who has spared their time to be with us this afternoon, and we look forward to our next conversation. Our next conversation is on Friday. We've scheduled a sequence of these conversations to engage the artists and practitioners and other professionals to learn with and from each other. On Friday, we will be talking about the power of social media as a creative. And our facilitator will be Dr. Jimmy Spire Sentongo. Many of the Ugandans are familiar with his work. For our friends in the diaspora, we will be sharing his bio and also a bit of his work for you to know for you to be ready for that conversation. That will be this Friday at 2 p.m. and we look forward to hosting you again. Thank you so much and wishing you all a wonderful afternoon. See you on Friday. Thank you, Sebo.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
Have a good afternoon.
Good afternoon.